An excellent physical and etheric level healing grid. Down here, an octagon, meaning eight stones in the circle. Octagons are the correspondence to mental and emotional type energy. They're excellent grids to use for that. And decagons correspond to more spiritual level stuff. More spiritual level energy, spiritual level healing, all of that. Those extra grid works are nice, the specific grid works are nice. A pentagram's nice to lay out around the table, but generally I recommend a Star of David or a double Star of David to get you through and to do whatever you want. Just buy a protractor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stones in the perimeter, 360 divided by 6 is 60-degree angles, and space them out from the center evenly. Okay? Cleanse the crystals first, then attune them, and then you're going to charge them initially for at least 20 to 30 minutes each. So this is a lengthy procedure. You're going to set aside a day to create a grid. But when you create this grid, I mean, you should hear the rave reviews I get from crystal workshops when I do them. I mean, it's unreal. The next day people call up or notes appear in the mail, and it's really pretty cool. Do you have anything else? Yeah, you guys have been there. Yeah. Didn't you like it?
Yeah. That's why we're building a new office, and we're going to put a double Star of David under the floor. We put it in the flooring on.
Cool. Cool.
I still have mine in my deck.
Cool. Have they worked out well for you guys?
Yeah, my double Star of David, I have a $100 bill folded under the center crystal. My wife has horses. It's expensive. You gotta do everything you can.
Spiritual materialism.
Does the size matter? I mean, are we dealing with?
Or again, avoid the little tiny ones. Get nice crystals.
But I mean, when you're doing your
grid,
laying out your grid,
it'll correspond to the size of the crystal.
Okay.
A crystal about this big. You want a grid work layout about that large. In the center, I recommend using a crystal sphere. And we played with a number of different things with this. Clusters, double terminated crystals, stuff like that. What we found is that a double terminated crystal, which was usually recommended for this, by more unknowing types. Most of Randall Bear's stuff didn't involve crystal grids and this kind of stuff, so he didn't do a lot of research on it. It involved more, I mean, you can tell the diagrams on here are of people in them. I mean, that was his interest was in its effect on people. A sphere radiates a nice even sphere of energy as well. So hitting anywhere in there, you don't have to be able to see the energy emitted. You can just aim it in the general direction, and it'll hit the right, it'll hit the sphere and empower the grid. Not so with crystal clusters. With crystal clusters, if you hit them, I mean, the energy goes everywhere. They're scattered. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know somebody that sees energy that can align it just perfectly if you want to play with that kind of thing. Double terminators are the exact same way. You shoot a double terminator, you hit it in the middle of the crystal. What you have is something that's going to emit a beam on each end and break your crystal grid. Break the concentric, I want to say concentric, break the homeostatic equilibrium of the crystal grid structure. So essentially what you're looking for here is, and you can use a double terminator, but what you have to do is aim, for a Star of David for instance, aim 3 of the crystals beams perfectly into one side and the other 3 crystal beams perfectly into the other side, and they have to be very equally matched. And then the double terminator will overload and radiate from the center and empower the grid. I mean, that's tricky. So do it the easy way, for crying out loud. Buy a sphere, and just aim it in the general direction. Try to get it pointed as well as you can at the sphere. Now, after you've laid this out, take something like a picture, or usually with me. Usually with me in 4 crystal grid classes, what I'll do is I'll just pass out a note card. And on one side I'll have people write out all the symbols, and on the other side I'll have people write out their affirmations. And the affirmations for this are just like affirmations for anything else, phrased in positive. I've already given you several good examples. And then usually those are placed under the main affirmation, the main picture, the main whatever is placed under the center sphere. And then you can place any other ones within the field. And they'll also get charged in power. But the main radiation place is directly under the sphere itself. Charging the grid itself. We're going to create a crystal sphere on this real quick. Okay, the little blue dot up here is the crystal sphere. What you're going to do is take a master charging crystal, okay, and this would be almost a too powerful master charging crystal here, which you've also attuned, just like all the other crystals, which you've also just charged for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And you're going to start at the beginning, and you're going to move out to one of the crystals in the perimeter, over to the next one, in to the center crystal, back out to the same crystal that you came from, down to the next crystal, into the center crystal, back out to the same crystal you came from, over to the next crystal. So you see what we're doing. We're creating a wagon wheel, essentially. You go in, out, over, in, out, over, in, out, over, in, out, over, in, out, over. And as you do that, if you'd like to do an affirmation, like I always visualize a beam of energy coming from the tip and charging the lines of the grid. And also, usually do an affirmation, something to the effect of, I charge this crystal grid with divine love and light to heal, protect, and manifest, or something like that. That's one of my favorites. Just stuff like that. I'm probably not as love and lighty as I used to be, but that was always one of my favorites. Also, when you do this, you won't need to use the master charging crystal after a couple of weeks. You'll have established the lines of the grid to the point where it won't be necessary, and where you can just charge it at a distance, or you can just charge it by holding your hands out over the top of it. And to do that, all you have to, 10 minutes a day is more than enough. If you're still charging it with the master charging crystal, then each time you go to charge the grid, all you have to do is charge the master charging crystal, hold it between your hands for 10 minutes or so, and then do the grid with that. So, and I believe that's all in the manual. That, in a nutshell, is crystal grids and Reiki. And there's some, there's some extraneous stuff in your handouts. Does anyone have a vast array of questions about that?
The clearer the crystal, better.
The clearer the crystal, better. And the more evenly matched you can get them.
Could you just repeat that very last part that you talked about recharging the grid once it's in place?
Once it's in place, there are two ways that you can do it. You can do it with the master charging crystal, in which case you would hold the crystal between your hands for 10 minutes, the master charging crystal between your hands for 10 minutes, and then do the wagon wheel thing around the perimeter of the crystal grid, and the inside to the inside sphere. Or you can hold your hands over it and charge it that way. Or you can charge it at a distance as part of a Reiki stack or something. And you can also charge Reiki stacks on these. Reiki stacks can be labeled. After you've created a stack for whatever, for abundance we'll say, you can label it Abundance Stack 1. And you can write that out on a card and charge it with a grid. Or you can create a stack of other stacks. Stuff like that. I encourage you to, if you're going to use more than one stack, to keep notes and write them out on a piece of paper, because times will change and things will no longer be current. So that way you'll be able to reestablish stacks. Yeah.
Clarification: are you saying spear or sphere?
Sphere.
You're talking about a piece
like
of quartz crystal that's been processed by man.
Right.
Okay. Person.
Crystal sphere. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions about that? Pardon? We'll get into divas right now for the last part of this day. And we'll touch on these briefly. There's a book called Medical Assistance Program, White Brotherhood Co-Creative Medical Assistance Program by Michelle Small-Wright. That is an absolutely phenomenal book. It introduced a process called coning. And I encourage everybody to go out and purchase this book because it's the key to working, it's a fantastic key to working with devic intelligence. What we've just seen down here really is from we're going to look at this from the concept of devic intelligence, just using it as our metaphor for angels, guides, whatever. Essentially what we've seen is someone very wisely asking for the assistance of a diva who can, or a devic intelligence, or an order of devic intelligence, that can charge any object with any other energy. In the same way, a lot of times when I study another energy, if you want to study some of the other things listed on Kathleen's stuff, like angelic light or something like that, all you have to do is call upon the overlighting diva of angelic light, and ask to experience that energy, and you will. An overlighting diva of an attunement process, the possibilities on this realm are practically endless. I highly recommend purchasing Great White Brotherhood, or the White Brotherhood Medical Assistance Program by Michelle Small-Wright. And in there you will find professional stuff as well for opening a coning during healing sessions and whatnot. A coning is essentially a magical circle within which devic intelligence and your higher self and various guides more fluidly interact. It's setting up sort of a coherent, stabilized environment for that interaction to take place in. And it's done simply by requesting, because that's the easiest way to deal with devic intelligence. And this has been a beautiful example of it. Just a beautiful example. So thank you. I'm glad you were here to do that. When you work with Reiki, ask for the assistance of the overlighting diva of Reiki, or all of the Reiki divas and all that. When you work with any kind of healing, ask for the assistance of the overlighting diva of healing. If you want to know about another system, just sit down in a quiet place where you can pay attention to your energy field and the shifts, and call upon, invoke, ask for the presence of, the assistance of, the overlighting diva of that system, and tell it what you want. Tell it if you want to get attuned to it. Tell it if you want to just experience it. You can ask for information. You can quiz it kinesthetically or with a pendulum or whatever your intuitive process is that you use. And it's an absolutely fantastic method. Michelle Small-Wright. W-R-I-G-H-T.
That's really strong.
Yeah, I'm digging it. Does anyone have any closing questions for today? I understand that we're coming up on 8 o'clock. Is that right? Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about stacking?
About
stacking?
Okay, what would you like to know?
Well, just clarify a little bit. I guess maybe it's pretty simple and I missed it or something. I don't know.
All it is a method of sending energy at a distance. And instead of sending to one thing at a time, you can send to many multiple, many different things at one time. All you're doing is you're sending a distance the same way that you always do. After you trace the Hanshazation in, you're offering it to something, and then you're tracing a Choku ray on top of that, and offering to something else, and tracing a Choku ray on top of that, and offering to something else, and taking, excuse me, and placing a Choku ray on top of that. And what that Choku ray is serving to do is isolate the vibrations of everyone and empower them. So there's no blending together of the people's energies and all of that. And in that way you can send to many, many things at one time.
You mean it's like insulation between the layers?
Insulation between the layers.
So what is the end result? Are you're sending to many people at one time, or you're trying to build some kind of an empowered grid that's going to, or it's just...
Well, one of the things that you find when you're a Reiki master is that you constantly have many people asking you to send them energy. If you were to sit down and spend 30 minutes sending energy to everybody, one at a time, that would be your